Hello and welcome to Clarity for UPSC. I'm Dr. Shivin. This is a continuation of the complete PYQ analysis series on this channel, and this is part 3 where we're going to finish all the questions of economy. Now, kya hai ye series? Basically, on YouTube, I'm covering every single previous year question of the prelims that has appeared from 2013 to 2024. इस सीरीज की 2 वीडियोस ऑलरेडी आ चुकी हैं. This is the 3rd video and this is aligned with the targets that I'm following in the STEP free guidance initiative for prelims 2025. So I hope you've seen the previous 2 videos also. अगर आपने वो नहीं भी देखी हैं तो you can just start from today. This is basically a PYQ analysis video जहाँ पर सारे PYQs जो आए हैं वो I will solve here. But इसका मतलब ये नहीं है that you can just sit back, relax, easily watch the video. You're supposed to treat this like a test. तो इस वीडियो को देखना कैसे है? पहले you will see the question on the screen. The idea is you should pause the video here, try to solve, then you should see the answer, then move on to the next question. So follow this loop, see the question, pause the video, then try to solve yourself, then see the answer. जो इस सेशन का PDF है, these are the slides, but what I've done is I've put all the questions of this session, which are all previous year questions, in a A4 PDF with answers and explanation, and I've uploaded that on my website. वो link आपको description box में भी मिल जाएगा and you'll also find it in the first comment. You can get the PDF from there as well. So without any further ado, let's get started. So this is the first question. अब जैसे ही आपने question देखा, please pause the video and try to find the answer and then see the answer that I tell you. तो अब इस question को देखते हैं. The finance minister on behalf of the prime minister lays the annual financial statement before both houses of parliament. At the union level, no demand for grant can be made except for the recommendation of President of India. अब ये जो first statement है, this is actually a statement of Article 112, but यहाँ पर Prime Minister की जगह होना चाहिए President of India, right? और UPSC कई बार ऐसे गलत options बनाता है. This statement obviously is wrong. The second statement is actually directly from Article 113 of the Constitution, and this is correct. Answer here will be 2 only. So this is what you're supposed to do. अब जैसे आपको एक question दिखा, pause the video, try and solve, then we'll see. अब इसमें क्या पूछा है कि जो हमारा 15th फाइनेंस कमीशन था, अदर दैन द क्राइटेरिया ऑफ पॉपुलेशन, एरिया एंड इनकम डिस्टेंस, इनके अलावा कौन कौन से क्राइटेरिया लिए थे फाइनेंस कमीशन ने टू सी हाउ शुड हॉरिजॉन्टल टैक्स डेवल्यूशन हैपन. व्हाट इज हॉरिजॉन्टल टैक्स डेवल्यूशन? One is vertical tax devolution, how much should center give to the states. Then there is horizontal tax devolution within the states, what should be the distribution. तो यहाँ पर कुछ क्राइटेरिया लिखे हैं, पॉपुलेशन, एरिया और इनकम डिस्टेंस. इसके अलावा कौन कौन से क्राइटेरिया लिए थे? तो इन क्राइटेरिया में से देयर वर 3 more क्राइटेरिया दैट वर पिक्ड, राइट? आंसर हियर इज ओनली 3. कौन से क्राइटेरिया पिक किए थे? One is demographic performance. Demographic performance basically meaning how have the states controlled the population. Then one is forest and ecology, again on how well they are performing in terms of their commitments for greenery and forestry, etc. And the last one was tax and fiscal efforts. How have the states consolidated their budgets and their debt levels. Governance reforms or stable government, तो obviously आप खुद भी सोच सकते हो, this cannot be a possible criteria, and even governance reforms is not a criteria for Finance Commission devolution. Answer here is only 3. अब next question देखते हैं. With reference to the expenditure made by an organization or a company, which of the following statements are correct? ठीक है, expenditure made by an organization. क्या पूछा है? Acquiring new technology is capital expenditure. Debt financing is capital expenditure, while equity financing is revenue expenditure. अब यहाँ पर ना एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट कॉन्सेप्ट है ऑफ कैपिटल एंड रेवेन्यू. सी द आइडिया ऑफ व्हाट इज फर्स्टली कैपिटल. इस वर्ड का मतलब क्या होता है इन इकॉनमी? सो कैपिटल एक्चुअली मीन्स एनीथिंग दैट गिव्स फ्यूचर स्ट्रीम ऑफ बेनिफिट्स. ठीक है, दिस इज हाउ दिस वर्ड इज डिफाइंड. पहली बात तो यहाँ पर कैपिटल इन द इकॉनमी इज फर्स्टली वी रीड इन टर्म्स ऑफ फैक्टर्स ऑफ प्रोडक्शन, लैंड, लेबर, कैपिटल, एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप. दिस कैपिटल डज नॉट मीन मनी. ऑल्दो कई UPSC की बुक्स में भी ये गलत लिखा है. इस कैपिटल का मतलब मनी नहीं होता, इस कैपिटल का इन दिस कॉन्टेक्स्ट हियर कैपिटल मीन्स tools and technologies. And then how is it related to money? Money spent on acquiring tools and technologies is known as financial capital or known as investment. तो एक तो ये हमारा कॉन्टेक्स्ट है. व्हेन वी रीड अबाउट कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर, जब हम कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर के बारे में पढ़ते हैं बजट में या कैसे भी, then there is another context. Capital expenditure is considered something that creates assets and liabilities, that has an effect on assets and liabilities, that is called capital expenditure. If I have to look at revenue expenditure does not create an effect on assets and liabilities. So this is how it is defined. Right? This is how we define revenue and capital expenditure. That is how we define the term capital. तो पहले अगर हमें ये क्लियर होगा देन दिस क्वेश्चन इज नॉट दैट डिफिकल्ट टू सॉल्व. तो अब देख लेते हैं. न्यू टेक्नोलॉजी इज कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर. ऑफ कोर्स, बिकॉज ए टेक्नोलॉजी इज इटसेल्फ कैपिटल एंड टेक्नोलॉजी ऑल्सो क्रिएट्स एसेट्स, राइट, बिकॉज इट विल गिव फ्यूचर बेनिफिट्स. सो वन इज करेक्ट. टू को देखते हैं. टू रेज कैपिटल फर्म्स कैन डू टू थिंग्स. वन इज डेट फाइनेंसिंग एंड वन इज इक्विटी फाइनेंसिंग. तो ये दोनों ही एक्चुअली कैपिटल रेजिंग में काउंट होती हैं. सो ये जो स्टेटमेंट यहाँ पर है, इक्विटी फाइनेंसिंग इज कंसिडर्ड रेवेन्यू एक्सपेंडिचर, दिस इज रॉन्ग एंड द आंसर हियर इज वन ओनली, राइट. ये हमने पढ़ा था बैंक्स में. इफ़ यू रीड अबाउट द फैक्ट ऑफ रिकैपिटलाइजेशन ऑफ बैंक्स, तो हियर वी रेफर टू कैपिटल एज द बैंक्स ओन मनी. तो आपने पढ़ा होगा बाज़ल नॉर्म्स में कैपिटल एडिक्वेसी रेशियो एक्सेट्रा. द टू वेज टू रेज कैपिटल फॉर अ बैंक आर डेट एंड इक्विटी फाइनेंसिंग. तो वहाँ से भी हम ये क्वेश्चन रिलेट कर सकते थे, राइट. अब एक और गलती भी है स्टेटमेंट में बाय इटसेल्फ, बिकॉज इफ़ यू लुक एट इट, इक्विटी फाइनेंसिंग इज एक्चुअली नॉट एक्सपेंडिचर ऑफ अ फर्म. ये एक्सपेंडिचर नहीं है, राइट. इक्विटी फाइनेंसिंग मीन्स दैट द कंपनी इज रेजिंग मनी. डेट फाइनेंसिंग इज कंपनी इज रेजिंग मनी. तो हर तरह से ये स्टेटमेंट गलत है. सेकंड स्टेटमेंट कैन बी एलिमिनेटेड एनीवे, राइट. लेट्स मूव ऑन टू क्वेश्चन नंबर 4. विच ऑफ द फॉलोइंग इफेक्ट्स ऑफ क्रिएशन ऑफ ब्लैक मनी इन इंडिया हैज़ बीन द मेन कॉज ऑफ वरी फॉर द गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया. ठीक है, देखते हैं. डाइवर्जन ऑफ रिसोर्सेज टू परचेज ऑफ रियल एस्टेट एंड इन्वेस्टमेंट इन लग्जरी हाउसिंग. ओके. इन्वेस्टमेंट इन अनप्रोडक्टिव एक्टिविटीज, परचेज ऑफ प्रेशियस स्टोन्स, large donation to political parties and growth of regionalism, loss of revenue due to tax evasion. Black money, क्या पूछा है इसमें कि black money, why is it a major concern? सबसे बड़ी main cause of worry क्या है? Black money is the money on which tax is not paid. That is the direct answer. So option D अगर आप देखोगे, simple question है, loss of revenue to the state exchequer due to tax evasion. Right, that's the definition of black money, जिस पैसे पे टैक्स नहीं दिया जाता. Again, simple question था मेरे हिसाब से. Question 5. Now this is a question that we need to look at. This came in 2018. See, this question might not be repeated again because equalization levy जो था वो तब न्यूज़ में था, आज नहीं है. But that means that current affairs are also important, especially on the new taxes that are introduced. Now, why does this become important this year? Because this year the government is going to come out with the new income tax bill. I think it's going to be released this week, and once this passes there will be some new provisions in the Income Tax Act. So जो नए provisions होंगे वो इस साल के लिए काफ़ी important हो जाते हैं. Although let us look at this question, maybe not relevant for today, but still एक बार try करते हैं इसको solve करने की. With reference to India's decision to levy an equalization tax of 6% on online advertisement services offered by non-resident entities, which one of the following statements are correct? It is introduced as part of the Income Tax Act. Actually, at that time, this was not introduced as part of the Income Tax Act. This was introduced as part of the Finance Bill. So this statement is not correct. The first statement is wrong. Again, the second statement, non-resident entities that offer advertisement services in India can claim a tax credit in their home country under DTAA. Generally, double taxation avoidance agreements में tax credits claim हो सकते हैं. That is how it is a double taxation avoidance agreement, that you will not be taxed in both countries. जहाँ से आप हो और जहाँ आप ऑपरेट कर रहे हो दोनों जगह आप पे टैक्स नहीं लगेगा, एक ही जगह लगेगा. बट ये जो इक्वलाइजेशन लेवी थी दैट वाज अनाउंस्ड इन 2018, दिस वॉज नॉट कंसिडर्ड अ पार्ट ऑफ इनकम टैक्स, इसे इनकम टैक्स नहीं माना गया था. दिस वॉज अ सेपरेट लेवी. दैट इज वाई यहाँ पर देयर वॉज नो प्रोविजन ऑफ हैविंग एनी क्लेम ऑफ टैक्स क्रेडिट, राइट, बिकॉज ये खुद इनकम टैक्स का पार्ट नहीं थी. तो दिस स्टेटमेंट इज ऑल्सो इनकरेक्ट एंड आंसर इज डी. ऑल्दो दिस क्वेश्चन नाउ आई डोंट थिंक इज रेलिवेंट, इट वॉज इन द न्यूज़ देन, उसके बाद से क्वेश्चन रिपीट भी नहीं हुआ है. So not something that is relevant now, but the important thing is that the Income Tax Act is coming out this year. तो इसमें जो provisions होंगे they become very important for us. आगे चलते हैं. The FRBM Review Committee report has recommended a debt to GDP ratio of 60% combined government by 2023, 40% central government and 20% for the state governments. This is absolutely correct. No problem in this statement. And this particular question is very important for this year. Why is it important? Because now the government has marked a new fiscal anchor of debt to GDP. So actually debt to GDP has become the anchor, has become the figure that the government will look at as far as a fiscal consolidation roadmap is considered. Statement 2 देखते हैं. Central government domestic liabilities of 21% of GDP, 49% ऑफ GDP ऑफ स्टेट गवर्नमेंट. ये तो वैसे ही पॉसिबल नहीं है. ऑब्वियसली सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट की जो डोमेस्टिक लाइबिलिटीज़ हैं वो ज़्यादा हैं एज कम्पेयर टू स्टेट गवर्नमेंट्स. दिस डेटा इज़ रॉन्ग. सेकेंड स्टेटमेंट इज़ रॉन्ग. थर्ड, एज पर कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ इंडिया इट इज़ मैंडेटरी फॉर अ स्टेट टू टेक सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट्स कंसेंट for raising any loan if the former owes any outstanding liabilities to the latter. This is directly a statement from the Constitution. This is Article 293 Clause 3. अब कई लोग ये बात बोलते हैं यूट्यूब पे, मैंने भी सुना है कि देखो यहाँ पर जहाँ पे लिखा होता है ना एज पर द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ इंडिया, वो स्टेटमेंट्स गलत होती हैं. ऐसा नहीं है, राइट. सो डोंट गो बाय दिस. ये लॉजिकल गेसिंग पे नहीं जाते, नॉलेज पे जाते हैं. दिस स्टेटमेंट कैन बी फाउंड इन लक्ष्मीकांत. तो एक तो आपको मैं यहाँ पे रिकमेंडेशन दूंगा कि जब भी आप बजट वाला पार्ट पढ़ रहे हो इकॉनमी में, तो इकॉनमी में वी रीड बजटिंग in the sense of what happens in the budget, how it is prepared and what has happened this year, right? So there's an economic perspective and there's also a political perspective here, because budget in itself is a political tool. So budget formation is here and economy में हम क्या पढ़ते हैं, the effects of fiscal policy and what happened this year. So it's good if you read it together, because ये दोनों चीज़ों में क्वेश्चन साथ में आते हैं. जैसे FRBM एक्ट जनरली हम इकॉनमी में पढ़ते हैं और ये वाला स्टेटमेंट हम जनरली पॉलिटी में पढ़ते हैं. अब ये आर्टिफिशियल क्लासिफिकेशन हमने करी है, यूपीएससी ने नहीं करी है. सो इट्स बेटर टू रीड दीज थिंग्स टुगेदर. बट इफ़ यू लुक एट इट, स्टेटमेंट 3 इज डायरेक्टली फ्रॉम द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ इंडिया. तो हर बार जब यहाँ पर ये चीज़ें लिखी होती हैं गलत नहीं होती. प्लीज़ रीड द आर्टिकल्स ऑल्सो अलॉन्ग साइड. आंसर हेयर विल बी 1 and 3 सिंस 2 इज रॉन्ग एंड 1 इज करेक्ट. आगे चलते हैं. अब what is or are the most likely advantages of implementing goods and services tax in India? ठीक है. So it will replace multiple taxes collected by multiple authorities and will thus create a single market in India. Okay, fairly right. It will drastically reduce the current account deficit of India and it will enable it to increase its forex reserve. अब actually current account deficit कम हो सकता है through GST. How? Because there is a concept of zero rated exports, right? तो इससे हो सकता है कि एटलीस्ट थोड़ा करंट अकाउंट डेफिसिट इंडिया का कम हो जाए, बिकॉज इंडिया विल एक्सपोर्ट मोर. बट ड्रास्टिकली रिड्यूस, दिस स्टेटमेंट डेफिनेटली मेक्स इट रॉन्ग, मेक्स इट एन एक्सट्रीम स्टेटमेंट. तो ये तो गलत है ही, बिकॉज ऑब्वियसली अ ड्रास्टिक इम्पैक्ट ओनली थ्रू अ न्यू टैक्स स्ट्रक्चर इज अनलाइकली. देन it will enormously increase, again you can see the pattern here, growth and size of the economy of India and will enable it to overtake China in the near future. Also wrong. So answer here should be 1 only. Ab again these words drastically reduce, enormously increase, ये जान के ऐड किए गए हैं to make these statements absolutely wrong. अगर आप देखो यहाँ पे लिखा होता it will increase, ये enormously हटा देते हैं. Let's say the third statement only said it will इंक्रीज द ग्रोथ एंड साइज ऑफ द इकोनॉमी ऑफ इंडिया, और यहाँ पर ये स्टेटमेंट करेक्ट खत्म हो जाती, तो ये स्टेटमेंट करेक्ट होती, राइट. ये जो इट विल एनेबल इट टू ओवरटेक चाइना इन द नियर फ्यूचर एनॉर्मसली, ये लिखा ही है इसको गलत करने के लिए. ठीक है, ऑल राइट. लेट्स नाउ मूव ऑन टू क्वेश्चन नंबर 8. सो क्या है इस क्वेश्चन में, tax revenue as a percentage of GDP of India has steadily increased in the last decade. ठीक है. The second statement is fiscal deficit of a percent as a percent of GDP of India has steadily increased in the last decade. अब अगर आप देखो जहाँ पर भी ये steadily increased वाली चीज़ें होती हैं, these are some things you should look at carefully. मैं अगेन बिल्कुल भी नहीं कह रहा हूँ कि हमेशा ही गलत होता है, बट अगर आप वैसे इंडिया की इफ़ यू स्टडीड द इकोनॉमिक सर्वे, या ये स्टेटमेंट्स जनरली इकोनॉमिक सर्वे से ही ली जाती हैं, इस साल का भी इकोनॉमिक सर्वे आया है, एंड आई विल एटलीस्ट गिव यू सम नोट्स टू स्टडी फ्रॉम दैट बजट आई हैव ऑलरेडी टॉट. टैक्स टू जीडीपी अगर आप इंडिया का देखो तो इंडिया का टैक्स टू जीडीपी का क्या ट्रेंड है, दैट इट इज़ ऑलमोस्ट फिक्स्ड, राइट. समवेयर बिटवीन 10 to 12% हमारा टैक्स टू जीडीपी रहा है ओवर द ईयर्स, राइट. अब देन फिस्कल डेफिसिट अगर हम देखें तो इंडिया का फिस्कल डेफिसिट ग्राफ कुछ ऐसा दिखता है, राइट, बिकॉज इन द कोविड ईयर्स फिस्कल डेफिसिट शॉट अप टू ऑलमोस्ट 9% ऑफ जीडीपी एंड देन डिक्लाइंड, राइट. तो दोनों ही स्टेटमेंट करेक्ट नहीं है, बट सो आंसर हियर इज बोथ नीदर वन नॉर टू. इसका ये अब ये 2017 की स्टेटमेंट है, तो ऑफकोर्स इवन देन दिस वॉज नॉट करेक्ट एंड इवन टुडे इट इज़ नॉट करेक्ट. बट व्हाट डज दिस टेल अस, दैट इकोनॉमिक सर्वे में जो टैक्स टू जीडीपी फिस्कल डेफिसिट वगैरह के ग्राफ्स आते हैं वो ग्राफ्स हमें ज़रूर देख लेने चाहिए खुद से. अब आपसे मैं एक चीज़ पूछता हूँ, टैक्स रेवेन्यू, ये स्टेटमेंट आपने मुझे कमेंट्स में बताना है करेक्ट है या नहीं. टैक्स रेवेन्यू कलेक्टेड बाय गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया हैज़ स्टेडीली इंक्रीज्ड इन द पास्ट डेकेड. सोच के बताना ये स्टेटमेंट करेक्ट है या नहीं, राइट. थोड़ा सा दिमाग लगेगा ये सोचने में, एंड आई विल एक्सप्लेन दिस इन द नेक्स्ट वीडियो. लेट्स सी आप लोग क्या जवाब देते हो इसका, राइट. अब ये दिस इज़ नॉट द सेम स्टेटमेंट, यहाँ पर परसेंटेज ऑफ जीडीपी लिखा है, यहाँ पर परसेंटेज ऑफ जीडीपी नहीं लिखा है. तो लेट्स सी व्हाट आंसर यू गिव. ठीक है, आगे चलते हैं. व्हाट इज और आर द पर्पस और पर्पसेस ऑफ द गवर्नमेंट्स टू स्कीम्स. वन इज सॉवरेन गोल्ड बॉन्ड स्कीम, द अदर इज गोल्ड मोनेटाइजेशन स्कीम. अब देखिए नाम से ही पता चल रहा है, सॉवरेन गोल्ड बॉन्ड स्कीम वॉज एक्चुअली introduced with something called inflation index bonds in 2016, and this scheme is very important this year because they were 8-year bonds that were actually coming to fruition in 2024. तभी आप देखोगे कि लास्ट ईयर की बजट में the import duty on gold was reduced from 15% to 6%, but more on that later. तो sovereign gold bond scheme इसलिए दी गई थी because in 2016 people were thinking that there is a lot of inflation in the economy. When the inflation in the economy is high, we know that real rate of interest is actually equal to nominal rate of interest minus inflation. So inflation was high, so people were earning almost negative real rate of interest. होने लगा था कि जैसे savings account में पैसा पड़ा है. So it's something that, you know, we were just wasting our money there. Our money is losing its real value. So they decided to replace it by actually buying gold. तो लोगों ने क्या किया कि rather than putting their money in savings account, they decided to buy gold. अब गोल्ड खरीदने से क्या होता है, that gold in India is generally imported. So since we import gold, it was leading to a current account deficit. So at that time, the RBI introduced the sovereign gold bond scheme that आप गोल्ड मत खरीदो, आप गोल्ड बॉन्ड्स खरीद लो that have an equivalent value, जिस पे हम आपको 2.5% का इंटरेस्ट भी देंगे. So reduce India's dependence on gold imports is absolutely correct here. अब सेकेंड स्टेटमेंट देखते हैं, प्रमोटिंग एफडीआई इन गोल्ड एंड ज्वेलरी सेक्टर. दिस इज नॉट समथिंग द सॉवरेन गोल्ड बॉन्ड और द गोल्ड मोनेटाइजेशन स्कीम वाज इंटेंडेड ऑन डूइंग, तो ये भी नहीं है. द थर्ड पार्ट इज द गोल्ड मोनेटाइजेशन स्कीम. दो फर्स्ट स्टेटमेंट जो है उसको पढ़ लेते हैं. अब इसमें क्या कह रहा है, सो गोल्ड मोनेटाइजेशन वाज बेसिकली, इसका मतलब ही ये था टू मोनेटाइज द आइडल गोल्ड, टू ब्रिंग द आइडल गोल्ड लाइंग with the Indian households into the economy so that, you know, you could pledge this gold for loans, etc. First statement is also correct. Answer here is C, which is 1 and 3 only. Again, but old schemes, but sovereign gold bond is bar definitely important है because 2024 में it became, the bond actually came to fruition. ये 8 साल का ही bond था. ठीक है, आगे देखते हैं. Which of the following is or are included in the capital budget of the government of India? Now again, we should look at this as capital expenditure or capital revenue should have an effect on assets and liabilities. अगर उस तरफ से देखेंगे तो कभी गलत नहीं करेंगे. So let's look at the first statement: expenditure on acquisition of assets like roads, buildings, machinery. Yes, of course, this is capital expenditure, not a doubt. Loans received from foreign governments. Yes, loans create a liability. Loans create a liability, so liability of repayment, second is also correct. Loans and advances granted to the states and union territories. Again, loans create a liability. So these are a liability for the state governments and an asset for the central government, but they have an impact on asset and liability, so they are counted in the capital budget. Answer here is D, 1, 2 and 3. आगे देखते हैं. Consider investment in the following assets. Yeah, so consider investment in the following assets. All right. तो देखिए इस क्वेश्चन में सबसे पहले लेट्स डिफाइन व्हाट आर एसेट्स. एक्चुअली कुछ काफ़ी कन्फ्यूजन थी इस क्वेश्चन में, तो आई जस्ट वांट टू सॉल्व इट फ्रॉम द बेसिक्स. पहले एसेट्स को डिफाइन करते हैं. सो एसेट्स आर क्लासिफाइड एज फाइनेंशियल एंड नॉन फाइनेंशियल. सबसे पहले देखते हैं व्हाट आर फाइनेंशियल एसेट्स. Financial assets are those that derive their value from a contractual obligation. For example, a contract to repay or a contract that creates value. For example, debt, a bond or equity. This is financial assets, right? Then there are non-financial assets. Non-financial assets can also be categorized further. So non-financial assets, we can categorize them as physical or tangible assets and non-tangible या intangible assets or non-physical assets, right? अब how are physical or tangible assets and intangible assets defined? देखो एक डिविजन तो ये है that physical and tangible चीज़ें जो होती हैं they can be touched and felt, they have a physical presence, right? जो ये intangible चीज़ें होती हैं they cannot be touched because they do not have a physical presence. But there is also another thing that needs to be noted here, और वो क्या है कि ये जो intangible assets होते हैं these are of course things that cannot be touched, they don't have a physical form, but they derive their value. In ये intangible assets की जो value है their value is derived from ideas, from knowledge, from reputation. तो ये दोनों चीज़ें हमें ध्यान में रखनी है when we have to solve this question. अब इस क्वेश्चन को सॉल्व करते हैं, right? Let's look at the first asset, brand recognition. Brand recognition is deriving its value from, again, reputation. So it is a intangible asset. Inventory of goods, let's say कोई कंपनी शर्ट्स बनाती है, उसकी inventory of unsold shirts. Now this is a physical asset, right? So it's not an intangible asset. You can touch those shirts, and those shirts that you can touch and feel are the actual asset. This is wrong. Intellectual property, again, deriving its value from ideas, from knowledge. So this is also an intangible asset. ये जो फोर्थ ऑप्शन है इसको लेके काफ़ी कंफ्यूजन थी. मेलिंग लिस्ट ऑफ क्लाइंट्स. व्हाट इफ दिस लिस्ट इज इन अ फिजिकल फॉर्म? एक तो हो सकता है कि मैं डेटा की तरह इस लिस्ट को दूं, बट मैं पेपर पे भी तो ये लिस्ट लिख के दे सकता हूँ. इसके बारे में बात करते हैं. देखो अगर मान लो ये पेपर पे भी लिख के दे दी जाए, लेट्स से दिस लिस्ट इज रिटन ऑन पेपर एंड गिवन, तब भी वेयर इज द एसेट डराइविंग इट्स वैल्यू फ्रॉम? क्या ये पेपर वैल्यूबल है या इस पेपर पे जो लिखा है विच represents the further distribution of the company, which represents the reach of this company? ये जो चीज़ है ये एसेट है, and this distribution and reach is coming from this knowledge of where this, where the clients are present, and therefore even this mailing list is counted as an intangible asset. Answer here will be only 3, although I will agree that this is a slightly confusing question. आगे चलते हैं. This is a fairly simple question because after over the years UPSC has become complex. Base erosion and profit shifting, sometimes heard in the news, is in the context of what? Again देखो अब इन questions में if you know you know, if you don't you don't, but this is something that's fairly common. Base erosion and profit shifting is what companies do when they try to misuse the provisions of double taxation avoidance agreement. So here the answer is curbing of tax evasion by multinational companies, right? तो इसको BEPS को कर्ब करने, DTA होता है ताकि कंपनीज they don't get taxed in 2 jurisdictions. इसको मिसयूज करते हैं थ्रू बेस इरोजन एंड प्रॉफिट शिफ्टिंग, और फिर इसको रोका जाता है थ्रू समथिंग कॉल्ड जनरल एंटी अवॉइडेंस रूल्स. राइट। इसमें जनरल एंटी अवेयरनेस रूल में एक कमिटी बनी थी इंडिया में विच was set up specially for the provisions of GAAR. इस कमेटी का नाम अगर आपको पता है तो आप कमेंट्स में ज़रूर बताना। अब नेक्स्ट, there has been a persistent deficit budget year after year. What action or actions of the following can be taken by the government to reduce the deficit? बेसिकली ये कह रहा है कि बजट में एक डेफिसिट है। अगर हम हर साल देखें तो गवर्नमेंट का जो एक्सपेंडिचर है वर्सेस गवर्नमेंट का जो कलेक्शन है, गवर्नमेंट का जो टैक्स कलेक्शन है या गवर्नमेंट की जो रिसीट्स हैं, उनमें एक गैप है। और ये जो गैप है इसको हम पूरा करते हैं थ्रू बोरोइंग एवरी ईयर, राइट। तो अब हर बार हमें बोरोइंग करनी पड़ती है। फॉर एग्जांपल दिस ईयर द गवर्नमेंट इज गोइंग टू बोरो 15 लाख करोड़ टू बैलेंस इट्स बजट। फिस्कल डेफिसिट इज पेग्ड एट 4.4% ऑफ जीडीपी। अब इसको कम करने के लिए गवर्नमेंट क्या कर सकती है? ठीक है, reducing revenue expenditure. Yes, this is something the government has done this year. Government has actually reduced revenue expenditure by reducing its subsidy bill. Okay, introducing new welfare schemes. नई schemes introduce करोगे तो आपका expenditure बढ़ जाएगा। Already government expenditure is more than government receipts. आप और expenditure अगर बढ़ा दोगे तो it will create more deficit. So this is wrong. Rationalizing subsidies. Exactly what the government has done this year. Rationalizing here, now this is an English word. ये कॉम्प्रिहेंशन का क्वेश्चन है, एक्चुअली इकोनॉमी का क्वेश्चन नहीं है। रैशनलाइजिंग मीन्स मेकिंग सब्सिडीज मोर रैशनल एज पर द डिमांड ऑफ द पब्लिक। जैसे इस बार गवर्नमेंट हैज़ रिड्यूस द सब्सिडी ऑन फूड items by reducing the 5 kg of additional food grain that was given after COVID, by reducing the subsidy on fertilizer. This action is known as rationalizing of subsidies, making the subsidy expenditure more rational. This would of course again reduce government expenditure and lead to lesser deficit. The third is also correct. Last is reducing import duty. Import duty is like a tax for the government. Government import duty कम करेगी तो टैक्स कलेक्शन कम होगी तो गवर्नमेंट का रेवेन्यू कम होगा। दिस इज नॉट व्हाट वी वांट टू बैलेंस द बजट। फोर्थ इज रॉन्ग, आंसर हियर इज 1 and 3 ओनली। आगे चलते हैं। अ डिक्रीज इन द टैक्स टू जीडीपी रेशियो ऑफ द कंट्री इंडिकेट्स विच ऑफ द फॉलोइंग। ठीक है, तो यहाँ पर ये क्या कह रहा है कि टैक्स टू जीडीपी रेशियो इज रिड्यूसिंग। सो इफ अगर आप इंडिया में देखो द टैक्स टू जीडीपी रेशियो इज जनरली फिक्स्ड or slightly increasing between 10 to 12%. But यहाँ पर ये कह रहा है that in the first year you collected 10% of GDP as tax. In the next year you collected 5% of GDP as tax. तो अब देखते हैं इसका क्या मतलब है। Let's read the options. The first is slowing economic growth rate and second is less equitable distribution of national income. देखते हैं कि what happens when the economy generally grows. Right? जब एक economy grow करती है, when the economy is growing well, there is actually an increase in consumption, an increase in investment, an increase in the level of incomes. When there is an increase in the level of incomes, people pay more taxes, right? So if the tax to GDP ratio is going down, that means that tax collection is going down, right? This generally shows that the economy is not growing properly. If the economy was growing properly, the tax to GDP ratio would increase or would at least stay fixed. Right, so first statement is correct. Second statement, less equitable distribution of national income. अब इस स्टेटमेंट को करेक्ट होने के लिए ये बात अज्यूम करनी पड़ेगी that tax is always collected more from the rich and less from the poor, right? But that's not true because taxation system खुद में regressive भी हो सकता है। For example, अगर आप इंडिया का taxation system देखो, we have both a progressive system of taxation as far as direct taxes are concerned, but also a regressive taxation system as far as indirect taxes are concerned. And since we don't know what is the mixture of both, तो इस second statement पे हम comment नहीं कर सकते। Only the first statement here is correct. अब next question, प्रधानमंत्री जनधन योजना has been launched for, अब ये 2015 का question है। The scheme is important, but I don't think इतना आसान question हमें दोबारा मिलने वाला है। Of course, this scheme was for India's journey of financial inclusion. Answer here is C. आगे देखते हैं। Again, an easy question. The government of India has established Niti Aayog to replace the Planning Commission. अगेन नीति आयोग इज़ इम्पॉर्टेंट, सो इससे हमें पता चलता है कि वी नीड टू रीड नीति आयोग, बट आई डोंट थिंक हमें इतना आसान क्वेश्चन अब मिलने वाला है प्रीलिम्स में. इन इंडिया डेफिसिट फाइनेंसिंग इज़ यूज्ड फॉर रेजिंग रिसोर्सेज फॉर. हमने अभी भी देखा था दैट देयर इज़ अ डेफिसिट इन द बजट एंड द डेफिसिट इज़ जनरली फाइनेंस थ्रू बोरोइंग. तो अब ये डेफिसिट फाइनेंसिंग हम क्यों करते हैं, इस पर पहले भी क्वेश्चन आया था, ये 2013 का क्वेश्चन भी इस पे आया, एंड इट इज़ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट दिस ईयर बिकॉज अगेन like I told you, debt to GDP has been made the new fiscal anchor. So I think a question on deficit financing, FRBM Act, something related to it will come again this year. So please read this properly. Deficit financing is used for raising resources for, in India, why are we borrowing? Why is the budget in deficit? Because we have to spend on economic development. So fairly easy. Next. In the context of the Indian economy, non-financial debt includes which of the following? Again, this question is also very important for this year. तो इसकी बात कर लेते हैं. Non-financial debt. So financial debt क्या होती है, पहले ये देखते हैं. Financial debt is debt that is owed by the financial sector of the economy. अब फाइनेंशियल सेक्टर में सारे फाइनेंशियल इंटरमीडियरीज आ जाते हैं, जैसे कि बैंक्स एक्सेट्रा. नॉन फाइनेंशियल डेट इज ऑफ कोर्स विच इज़ नॉट ओड बाय द फाइनेंशियल सेक्टर. तो अगर बैंक्स की डेट होगी, फाइनेंशियल इंटरमीडियरीज की डेट होगी, तो उसको हम फाइनेंशियल डेट बोलेंगे. दिस क्वेश्चन इज इंपॉर्टेंट दिस ईयर बिकॉज फॉर द नॉन फाइनेंशियल सेक्टर new committee, high level committee for regulatory reforms has been announced in this year's budget. For the financial sector there is already a body named as FSDC. तो ये थोड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट है. अब देख लेते हैं इस क्वेश्चन को. हाउसिंग लोन्स ओड बाय हाउस होल्ड्स. हु ओज दिस डेट? हु ओज दिस डेट? हाउस होल्ड्स ओ दिस डेट. ठीक है. अमाउंट्स आउटस्टैंडिंग ऑन क्रेडिट कार्ड्स. हु ओज दिस डेट? हाउस होल्ड्स ओ दिस डेट. ट्रेजरी बिल्स. हु ओज द डेट हियर? गवर्नमेंट ओज द डेट. तो अगर आप 1, 2 और 3 को देखो, यहाँ पर द डेट इज ओड बाय नॉन फाइनेंशियल सेक्टर. तो all 3 are non-financial debt. Answer is D, 1, 2 and 3. अगर financial debt होती owed by banks etc., then we would have called it financial debt. अब with reference to physical capital in the Indian economy, consider the following pairs. Physical capital. Capital again here refers to a factor of production which is tools and technologies. Physical capital. Consider the following pair. Farmer's plow. Is it working or fixed? So working capital क्या होता है? That gets used up in production. Working capital will get used up in production. Fixed capital will stay. So a good way to classify is that working capital is an ingredient in production, whereas fixed capital is an assistant in production. अब इस बेसिस पे अगर हम देख लेते हैं तो farmer plow, of course this is not working capital, it is fixed capital. First statement is wrong. Second देखते हैं. Computer as fixed capital, of course this is correct, it is an assistant in production. Second is correct. Yarn used by weaver as fixed capital, again this is wrong because yarn is an ingredient, it gets used up, so this is wrong. Petrol as working capital, this is correct, it is an ingredient, it will get used up with production. 2 and 4 are correct. So how many of the above pairs are correct? Only 2. Next question. Consider the following markets, right? Government bond market, call money market, treasury bill market, stock market. How many are included in capital markets? तो दो तरह की फाइनेंशियल मार्केट्स पढ़ते हैं हम, known as money market and capital market. Capital market has a maturity period of greater than 1 year. तो यहाँ पर जो जो चीज़ें greater than 1 year हैं उनको हम इसमें मानेंगे. तो गवर्नमेंट बॉन्ड मार्केट ये बिल्कुल इंक्लूडेड होगा कैपिटल मार्केट में बिकॉज मैच्योरिटी पीरियड इज मोर देन 1 year. कॉल मनी नो, सिंस मैच्योरिटी पीरियड इज लेस देन 1 year, तो ये नहीं है इंक्लूडेड. ट्रेजरी बिल्स अगेन वेरी शॉर्ट टाइम, सो मैच्योरिटी पीरियड इज लेस देन 1 year, नॉट इंक्लूडेड. स्टॉक मार्केट, स्टॉक्स आर टेक्निकली ओन्ड इन परपेचुइटी, so even this is correct. 1 and 4 both are correct. Answer is only 2. आगे देखते हैं. With reference to IFC masala bonds, this is a current affairs of 2016, but again something that we have to study. Which of the following statements are correct? अब international IFC तो नाम में लिखा है, International Finance Corporation is the name of the World Bank. This is correct. Rupee denominated bonds, debt financing for the public and private sector, also correct. Basically, these are bonds that are issued by an Indian entity that wants to raise debt capital from abroad, and these bonds are denominated in rupees, and the World Bank helps us raise these bonds. That is why these bonds were in news in 2016. अब तो उतने news में नहीं है, but both these statements are correct. अब with reference to the Indian economy, collateral borrowing and lending obligations are instruments of. Again, see, if you look at it, these are questions that if you know the answer you do, but if you don't know, you don't know. So ये थोड़ा unfortunate है that questions are like this. At least economy में I think questions should not be इतने mug up based. But if you know why CBLO are introduced, right? CBLOs क्यों आए थे? Clearing Corporation of India Limited had introduced these instruments. Why? Because the NBFCs at that time, जब introduce हुए थे, I think in 2003, NBFCs could not access the call money market. Call money market was only for banks. So for letting NBFCs access short-term, money market instruments, CBLOs were introduced. So they are part of the money market. Answer is C. Up. In context of finance, the term beta refers to, again, beta is something that looks at fluctuations of a stock. There are two things that we have to study here, alpha and beta. Alpha is something that is seen to see a performance of a mutual fund, right? How much more it return it gives as compared to the index benchmark. तो अगर हम देखें, जैसे मान लीजिए Sensex has grown by 10%, although that's really not true at the moment. काफ़ी हालत ख़राब है इंडियन मार्केट्स की, of course due to external factors. Let's say Sensex has grown by 10% and this mutual fund grows by 12%. Then this mutual fund has an alpha of 2, right? Similarly, beta is used to check the volatility. Volatility क्या है? That if Sensex grows, let's say Sensex grows like this, या फिर I'll just make a better diagram. If Sensex goes like this, what happens to the stock? अगर ये ऐसे होता है, like it has, like अगर सेंसेक्स ऊपर जाता है तो ये बहुत ऊपर जाता है, सेंसेक्स नीचे जाता है तो ये बहुत नीचे जाता है, so this will be called a stock that has a very high beta or a beta value greater than 1. So this is what beta is used to check for. So as you can see, option D here, a numeric value that measures fluctuations of a stock changes in the overall stock market. Up. With reference to convertible bonds, consider the following statements. This is a very interesting question, so I'll hope you pause the video and try to solve it. There's a good explanation to this also, right? As there is an option to exchange the bond for equity, convertible bonds pay a lower rate of interest, right? इस statement को समझते हैं पहले. Convertible bonds or basically debentures basically mean that you have given a bond is a debt instrument, तो आपने basically एक loan दिया है, but you can also convert it to equity and take shares in the company. Now, since you have this option, let's compare this to someone who only has given a bond, who does not have this option. So let's say both of you, this is person 1, let's say, and this is person 2. Person 1 gave a loan to the company of, let's say, 1 crore rupees at 10% rate of interest. Person 2 also gave a loan to the company at 1 crore rupees. Now, person 2 has the option that if company does really well, let's say company starts doing a lot of profits, company becomes a unicorn, starts making a lot of money, they can convert their bonds to equity and get shares in the company. So इस case में person 2 has at an advantage, right? And it's his option. If he wants, he can exercise that option. अब इस केस में हम पर्सन 1 को देखते हैं. कंपनी चाहे कितने भी प्रॉफिट्स करे, पर्सन 1 will only make this 10% rate of interest. So since person 2 is being given an additional option of conversion to equity, he will be offered a lower rate of interest here, maybe let's say 8%. So the first statement is correct. Second देखते हैं. As there is an option to convert to equity, right? This affords the bondholder a degree of indexation to rising consumer prices. Rising consumer prices is basically inflation. Let's say consumer prices are rising, right? Consumer prices are rising. It is generally assumed that inflation, at least in the short run, that companies will make more profits, right? So in the short run, company will make more profits because of these rising consumer prices. Now if this happens, the person who has these convertible bonds, ये क्या करेगा, that they will just convert their bonds to equity. On equity, the return they get is a share of the profits, right? So they are protected against inflation as compared to someone who only has bonds which are loans, right? This person will not be protected. इनको सिर्फ 10% जैसे हमने देखा था 10% रेट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट ही मिलेगा चाहे कितना भी इन्फ्लेशन हो. So the fact that you have the option to convert your bonds to equity, it provides you a degree of protection, a degree of indexation or linkage to the rising consumer prices. So statement 2 is also correct. Answer here is C, both 1 and 2. आगे देखते हैं 25. With reference to the Indian economy, consider the following statements. Commercial paper is a short-term unsecured promissory note. अब देखो, here you can see the repetition. Commercial paper, certificate of deposits, call money और zero coupon bonds वो पहले पूछ चुके हैं. So they ask collateralized borrowing and lending obligation after that. Right? आगे भी देखोगे इस टाइप के questions पहले भी आए हैं. So commercial paper, short-term unsecured promissory note. This is correct. Second, certificate of deposit is a long-term instrument issued by Reserve Bank of India. This is absolutely wrong. CDs are actually short-term instruments that are issued by banks, right? So this is not something that is correct. Second statement आप directly eliminate कर सकते हो. अब let's look at the third statement. Third statement is call money is short-term finance used for interbank transactions. This is correct. So statement 3 is right. Statement 4, zero coupon bonds are interest-bearing short-term bonds. So zero coupon का मतलब ही ये है that they are sold at a discounted value. They are not interest bearing. So statement 4 is wrong. Answer here is 1 and 3 only. Up. You will see, look at these statements. याद रखना यहाँ पे options देखो एक बार ध्यान से. Commercial paper, certificate of deposits, call money, zero coupon bonds. Now I'll show you how repetition happens. ये question कहाँ का है? 2020 का question है, right? Answer is 1 and 3. ये देखो 2019 का क्वेश्चन. सर्टिफिकेट ऑफ डिपॉजिट्स, कमर्शियल पेपर, प्रॉमिसरी नोट, पार्टिसिपेटरी नोट. दी आंसर हियर विल डिस्कस, बट इफ यू सी दी ऑप्शंस दे वर रिपीटेड नेक्स्ट ईयर ऑल्सो. तो एटलीस्ट पास के ईयर्स के क्वेश्चंस के ऑप्शंस भी हमें एनालाइज कर लेने चाहिए. अब देखते हैं. विच ऑफ द फॉलोइंग इज इशूड बाय रजिस्टर्ड FPIs टू ओवरसीज इन्वेस्टर्स हु वांट टू बी part of Indian stock markets without registering with themselves directly? The answer here is participatory notes, so that foreign investors can participate through FIAs. Now participatory notes have a problem, and that is why SEBI constantly regulates these. अब ये problem क्या है ये आप मुझे comments में बताओगे कि इसका दिक्कत क्या है. अब question 27, fairly simple. Venture capital क्या होता है? It is capital that is provided to startups when they wish to grow. So long-term startup capital provided to new entrepreneurs. Again, ऐसे easy questions अब शायद हमें ना मिलें UPSC में, right? आगे देखते हैं. Question 28. The RBI or the Reserve Bank of India manages and services Government of India securities, but not any state government securities. Okay. Treasury bills are issued by Government of India, and there are no treasury bills issued by state government. Treasury bills are offered at a discount from the par value. Third statement, as you can see, is correct. Second statement is also correct. RBI is the banker to the Government of India and also to the state governments, right? So ये statement correct नहीं है. RBI manages and services Government of India securities as well as state government securities. ये चीज़ सही है कि T-bills Government of India issue कर सकती है, state governments नहीं कर सकती, and they are offered at a discounted rate. Answer here is C, 2 and 3 only. आगे चलते हैं. Question 29. India accounts for 3.2% of the global export of goods. ठीक है. Many local companies and some foreign companies operating in India have taken advantage of India's PLI scheme. अब ये जो assertion reason type questions होते हैं, right? पहले तो देखो यार ये जो डेटा है, solving this question now is probably not that important because this data is not something that is going to be relevant today. इस बार की economic survey में जो data है वो हमें याद करना है. But questions like this, again, पहले तो अगर आपको confusion हो कि explain करता है या नहीं, I've told you before also, just write the word because here. Statement 1, because statement 2. That is how you can check if it is a correct explanation or not a correct explanation. इसके options अगर आप देखोगे, the 4 options, you'll realize that ऐसे में if you can just find one incorrect statement, अगर आपको एक भी incorrect statement मिल जाती है तो you will be aware कि because there is one incorrect statement, you will find the answer, because first option क्या है, both are correct and the explanation is correct. Second option is both are correct, explanation is incorrect. Third is one is correct, two is false. Fourth is one is incorrect, two is correct. इसका मतलब एक ना एक statement तो correct है ही. I just need to find one incorrect statement and the answer will be there in front of me. And that is exactly the case with this question. Since this statement is incorrect, मुझे आगे पढ़ने की ज़रूरत ही नहीं है. The answer itself becomes D. Right? आगे चलते हैं. The effect of devaluation of a currency is that it necessarily, अभी necessarily word यहाँ पर important है, improves the competitiveness of domestic export in the foreign markets. This is, अब चलो पहले पढ़ लेते हैं. Increases the foreign value of domestic currency, improves the trade balance. Very intelligent question. ठीक है. Competitiveness of exports. This will definitely increase if there is devaluation, right? Foreign value of domestic currency will definitely not increase. You are devaluing it. तो ये तो second गलत है ही. अब improve the trade balance. अब यहाँ पर question ये है कि this question was made easy because of the options, right? But अगर मैं यहाँ पर ये option दे देता 1 and 3 only, तो क्या करते आप? Because यहाँ पर नहीं है 1 and 3 only, so it's very easy to say. आपको पता है second गलत है, so now it's either 1 only or 3 only. 1 only लोगों को पता है कि comparative तो हो ही जाते हैं, but मान लो यहाँ पर options होते 1 only और ये C की जगह लिखा होता 1 and 3 only, तो इस क्वेश्चन को आंसर करना मुश्किल होता, because most people have not studied something called the Marshall-Lerner condition. और क्वेश्चन आ चुका है इस पे, Marshall-Lerner condition, also the J curve. J curve condition क्या कहती है? J curve condition says that when you devalue your currency or your currency depreciates, current account balance अगर आपका आज यहाँ पर है, firstly this current account balance will depreciate or go down, it will go negative, then it will go up. This is what the J curve looks like. So devaluation of currency does not necessarily improve the trade balance. The statement is wrong. Answer here is 1 only. Competitiveness, your exports become better, but this depends on the elasticity of your exports and imports. How does the J curve react? I can't explain this concept here, but Google it if you want to study it. It's very interesting. आगे चलते हैं. If another global financial crisis happens in the near future, which of the following action or policies are most likely to give some immunity to India? ठीक है, देखते हैं. Not depending on short-term borrowings, short-term foreign borrowings. अब इससे क्या फायदा है? If you depend on foreign borrowings, you are opening yourself up to exchange rate risk, right? And also rollover risk. So that is not there. So this is correct. अगर आप short-term foreign borrowings पे dependent नहीं हो. Opening up to more foreign banks, this will not protect us from a global financial crisis, right? Because foreign banks might themselves be involved in this crisis. Maintaining full capital account convertibility, also something that will not protect us. Actually, it can make the situation much worse if we are having full capital account convertibility. This is exactly what happened with the East Asian crisis when the tiger economies faced the crisis in 1997. तो दिस, अब इससे रिलेटेड भी गवर्नमेंट ने एक कमेटी बनाई थी. पहले भी मैंने आपसे एक कमेटी पूछी है. गवर्नमेंट मेड अ कमेटी रिलेटेड टू दिस ऑल्सो. दिस ऑल्सो यू कैन मेंशन इन द कमेंट्स कौन सी कमेटी थी. सेकंड एंड थर्ड आर रॉन्ग हियर. आंसर शुड बी 1 ओनली. आगे देखते हैं. अगेन सेम क्वेश्चन. इन द कॉन्टेक्स्ट ऑफ इंडिया, विच ऑफ द फॉलोइंग फैक्टर्स इज अ कॉन्ट्रीब्यूटर और कॉन्ट्रीब्यूटर्स टू रिड्यूसिंग द रिस्क ऑफ अ करेंसी क्राइसिस? अब इसका आंसर देखते हैं. The options are foreign currency earnings in India's IT sector, increasing government expenditure, remittances from Indians abroad. So the currency crisis is avoided when we earn dollars from abroad. So कौन सी चीज़ों से we are earning dollars here? Foreign currency earnings of India's IT sector is a good thing for Indian economy, creates a favorable external balance, creates a rise in our forex reserves. Similarly, remittances also create a rise in our forex reserves, but increasing government expenditure does not have a direct impact on our forex reserves. Second statement is wrong here. Answer here is B, 1 and 3 only. Convertibility of rupee implies that what is the ease of conversion to other currencies. So permission of converting to other currencies and vice versa. In India, we have full current account convertibility. So current account convertibility is there 100%, but capital account convertibility is not there. अब यहाँ पर भी आप देखो convertibility asked first in 2015 और पहले अगर हम देखें यहाँ पर there was also a question on convertibility, yeah, so capital account convertibility that was asked in 2020. So PYQs do get repeated. आगे देखते हैं. अब the problem of international liquidity is related to It's a problem of international liquidity is related to non-availability of. Again, I think just from the context it is clear. Liquidity in international transactions require dollars and other hard currencies. All these hard currencies that are part of SDR of the IMF. So answer here should be C. Again, I think context से भी ये चीज़ clear हो रही है यहाँ पर. Now let's move on to question 35. With reference to balance of payments, which of the following constitute the current account? Current account means the transaction is settled. This does not create a future obligation. Right? So a settled transaction is part of the current account. Right? तो अब देख लेते हैं यहाँ पर क्या क्या ऑप्शन है हमारे पास. फर्स्ट ऑप्शन इज बैलेंस ऑफ ट्रेड. Balance of trade, of course, will be a settled transaction, import, export, etc. First is correct. Assets or liabilities, of course, will be part of capital account. तो इसको तो हटा देते हैं. Balance of invisibles, again correct. Invisibles में there are few things here. So there are services, there is factor income, as well as there are remittances. So third is correct. Special drawing rights or SDRs, again like I was mentioning in the previous one, do not fit in here, not in the current account. So answer here is 1 and 3, which is C. Up. Balance of payments is a systematic record of, again very easy question. अब हमें इतने से easy questions नहीं मिलते. Basically it is economic transactions that are happening between people living outside the country versus people living inside the country. So all import and export transactions of a country during a given period, normally a year. Answer here is A. अब यही क्वेश्चन पहले भी पूछा था, दोबारा पूछा व्हाट कॉन्स्टिट्यूट्स द कैपिटल अकाउंट. पहले ये पूछा था, फिर ये भी पूछ लिया कि करंट अकाउंट में क्या होता है. अगेन सो बैलेंस ऑफ पेमेंट इज इंपॉर्टेंट. कैपिटल अकाउंट में वो चीज़ें होंगी दैट विल क्रिएट अ फ्यूचर लाइबिलिटी और अ फ्यूचर एसेट विच आर नॉट सेटल्ड ट्रांजैक्शंस. तो देख लेते हैं. लोन्स ऑफ कोर्स विल बी पार्ट ऑफ द कैपिटल अकाउंट, राइट. फॉरेन डायरेक्ट इन्वेस्टमेंट विल क्रिएट अ फ्यूचर liability in terms of repayment of profit, etc., will be part of this. Remittances are part of current account. Portfolio investment also part of capital account. So 1, 2 and 4 are the correct options here. Again, अगर आपको balance of payments आपने ढंग से पढ़ा है, this should be fairly easy to solve. आगे देखते हैं. Which one of the following groups of items is included in India's forex reserves? तो forex reserves में क्या क्या आता है, right? This is the question. अब again fairly, I mean this is just a fact that we have to study. So forex reserves includes 1, foreign currency assets, gold holdings of the RBI and special drawing rights, right? So this is a fairly, again easy concept नहीं है यहाँ पे कोई बहुत ज़्यादा, right? So if we've studied the concept of forex reserves, we'll understand this. Answer here is B. क्या क्या होता है, what is included in forex reserve? There's foreign currency assets, whatever currencies the RBI holds, like the US dollar, the euro, the yen, etc. Then gold reserves that are held, special drawing rights, and there's also a reserve tranche position here. तो ये 4 चीज़ें हैं. आगे देखते हैं. With reference to FDI in India, right, which one of the following is considered its major characteristic? तो FDI का major characteristic क्या है? It is the investment through capital instrument, essentially in a listed company, okay? Largely non-debt creating capital flow, involves debt servicing, instrument made by foreign institutional investors in the government securities, right? So again, let's read the options. Foreign institutional investors in government securities, this will be called FII or FPI. So this is of course not correct. Then investment which involves debt servicing, ये भी नहीं है, right? FDI does not create or is not linked to any debt. When someone does foreign direct investment, you have to share with them a share of the profits. ठीक है, आगे देखते हैं. It is the investment through capital instruments essentially in a listed company. Now it is capital investment, but again might not be only in a listed company. FDI can happen in any company, right? So this is also not right. Answer here is B. It is largely non-debt, creating a capital flow. Non-debt investment है, coming from abroad, bringing capital into the economy. Answer is B. आगे चलते हैं. Which one of the above can be included in FDI? Again, a question on FDI repeated in 2021. So let's look at the options first. So let's look at the options, right? So foreign currency convertible bonds. Since these bonds are convertible, they can be converted to equity, right? Converting to equity will mean they are part of FDI, right? So, and again, very carefully worded options here. So the first statement is correct. Foreign institutional investment with certain conditions. If the condition is that you must hold more than 10% of the shares and you must hold it for a long term, you cannot sell for less than 3 years, for example. This can also be part of FDI. Global depository receipts. What are GDRs? Indian company has some shares. It gives it to a bank. Let's say, मैं ADR बता देता हूँ आपको, DDR उससे clear हो जाएगा. Shares of a company are given to a bank in the US. This bank then creates some derivative instruments known as depository receipts, which are then invested into by Americans. Right? So this is also correct. ये अगर अमेरिका में हो तो इसको अमेरिकन डिपॉजिटरी रिसीट्स कहेंगे. अगर ग्लोबली होने लगे, 2-3 कंट्रीज में होने लगे, तो ग्लोबल डिपॉजिटरी रिसीट्स कहेंगे. ऑल्सो करेक्ट. नॉन रेजिडेंट एक्सटर्नल डिपॉजिट्स. These are not investments that get you equity of a company. So 4 is wrong. But all 3, 1, 2 and 3, this will also get you equity of the company. This can also get you equity of the company. This will also get you equity of the company. So answer here is A, 1, 2 and 3. Okay, so that brings me to the end of this video. And just something that I'd like to share with you. मैंने वीडियो आज रिकॉर्ड की है and it's being you are seeing this on 14th. So I guess happy Valentine's Day to you. But I don't celebrate Valentine's Day personally because unfortunately the attack on Pulwama that happened on Indian soil in Kashmir happened on 14th Feb 2019. So I don't think at least here in India we should celebrate 14th Feb. It's anyway a foreign festival that has nothing to do with India, but this has something to do with a lot of Jawans being martyred. So I think this should be remembered more as a martyr remembrance day than Valentine's Day. So I don't celebrate it personally. But if you are celebrating, I don't judge people who are. I'm not that person जो दूसरों को judge करे. So if you are celebrating, happy Valentine's Day to you. But I just wanted to point out something to you. I'm telling you honestly, I am recording this on Thursday. You are on 13th. You are seeing this on Friday, which is the 14th. I was not feeling very good today, and I did not feel like doing a lot of work today. But I just wanted to say this for myself, that I'm proud that I still recorded this. देखो, honestly, I know a lot of people will not watch till the end, तो मैं खुल के बोल सकता हूँ. आप मेरे चैनल पे देखना, whenever I post these videos where I'm teaching PYQs, जैसे कि ये this is almost an hour long video और मैंने PYQs यहाँ पर पढ़ाए हैं. इन videos पे people do not watch them, right? And of course, as a creator, as someone who has a running YouTube channel, how many views come on a video is sort of a motivator for me also. I'll be lying if that I say it's not a motivator. And when I know for a fact, abhi main video publish nahi kari hai, I know for a fact that this video will get lesser views than whatever generally my videos get. But of course, I have made a commitment that I'll do this, and I think it's important कि एक जगह सारे PYQs की compilation हो, तो मैं कर रहा हूँ. So when I started STEP, I committed two things that I'll be doing here regularly. One is active recall sessions and one is PYQ videos. इन दोनों ही वीडियोस पे आप देखना, these are not videos that attract a lot of views honestly, but I'm happy to do them. मतलब मुझे करने में कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. The only thing is, despite knowing this and despite not feeling good and not feeling like I am that मेरा मन नहीं था ज़्यादा आज काम करने का. आई वॉज नॉट फीलिंग वेरी गुड. कोई रीज़न नहीं है, नथिंग्स रॉन्ग, इट्स ऑल गुड, कुछ ख़राब नहीं हुआ है, बस जस्ट फेल्ट लेजी and didn't feel like working. But I just want to say for myself at least that I'm proud that I did, that I'm proud that I at least completed this, even though I did not want to. And secondly, I'm also proud of you if you've watched till here. If you've watched till here, I can tell you something else, which I will announce on YouTube. But अगर आपने यहाँ तक देखा है तो you deserve to know before others, which is that I have decided to start a new passion project. Although जितना काम मेरे को लाइफ में है मुझे एक काम करना नहीं चाहिए था, but whatever. So I decided to start a new passion project, which is a podcast of my own. Right? I'm going to start a new channel where I'm just going to start a new podcast. And ऐसे you'll feel कि यार YouTube पे तो podcast सभी लोग कर रहे हैं. How is this different? So I have decided to make it purely academic, as academic as possible. For example, tomorrow morning I'm going, and tomorrow is the 14th, so I'm going to record my first podcast tomorrow. Hopefully it all works out well. Abhi kari nahi hai. With Professor Harshvi Pant. If you are a student of PSIR, you will know who he is. Harshvi Pant is one of the key members of the Observer Research Foundation. He writes extensively on IR. When I was doing my diploma in IR, I read a lot of his papers. PSIR के students तो सब जानते ही होंगे इनको. I'm going tomorrow to record my first podcast with him. So I've just started this new passion project. Just thought I'll let you know. Anyway, thank you for watching if you did. And again, like I told you, बहुत कम लोग ये videos देखते हैं. But अगर आपने देखी हैं, so kudos to you. I'll see you next time. I'll see you on Saturday now, which is tomorrow. And on Saturday, we'll do an active recall session of everything that we've read in STEP in the last 2 weeks. See you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.